Warning. The following episode contains subject matter and scenes that some viewers may find upsetting, disturbing, or unnerving. Please note, viewer discretion is advised at all times. Sit back and enjoy.
The address of the emergency.
Cook Street. There's a young boy who got his caps outside. I don't know.
Outside of which number?
4758, I think.
Cook Street.
Yeah.
What area?
Barking. He looks like he's collapsed or had a seizure or something. He's always just drunk.
So were you passing by in your car?
Yes.
Okay, you've drove past now, you're no longer there. Do you know if he was awake?
No.
Do you know if he was breathing?
No, I don't know.
Stephen Port had caused immense distress to the families of his victims because of the wicked and monstrous lies he'd told in court to cover his tracks.
Stephen, did you have any involvement in his death?
I did not know. No.
Did you kill Jack Taylor?
Did not know. No.
Did you administer any drugs or noxious substances to him
I did not know.
with the intention of causing him harm?
One of the most dangerous criminals they've ever encountered.
Why are you searching for boy drugged rape?
Still porn.
That's not general porn, Stephen, is it?
Drugging young men for his own gratification. He killed 4 with overdoses, victims of what prosecutors called his selfish appetites.
Hello and welcome back to I Could Murder a Podcast. I'm Tom and he's still here. It is Ben.
Still here, ready to deliver. I'm excited about it. I'm almost as excited as you are. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see me and it's okay to see you. So today's case, we're going to get right into it.
Yeah,
we're going to get right into
the grind.
The grinder killer, Stephen Port.
Yeah, and I have an issue to take straight off the bat with that one. I understand why he's known as the grinder killer. That I've come to that conclusion. I've done the maths there, and obviously the grinder killer.
It was before you begin, actually.
How the f*** are you?
I've never had dating apps.
Okay.
Never been into it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wasn't single when they kind of came around.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about them.
Well, what do you want to know? Where should we start?
Would you say what's your opening line?
Wow. Opening line.
So I bet, is it something like trying to be quirky?
No, even worse than that. Don't message at all, just wait for them to start, initiate the conversation.
Is that why you deleted all the apps?
That's why I deleted them all immediately.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
So I understand why they call him the grinder killer. I mean, first of all, that makes a lot more sense than going by some of the other apps or websites that he was registered with. And also, if you're not aware that it's, Grindr without the E, it could make him sound like, similar to last week's case, a bit of a butcher.
Yeah, the meat grinding, but it evokes that kind of thought, definitely.
Whereas the Sleepy Boys killer, again, scary.
Which Sleepy Boys is an escort app.
I'll list the rest of them for you. I have made a list that he was also registered on. So he had an account on Grindr, Hornet, Fit Lads.
Don't know why that's got to be. Hornet's a weird one.
Hornet, yeah.
Hornet doesn't. Well, it's not. Okay, I get horny, but what's the link to men?
Hornet. You could horn it in.
In what?
Well,
let us know in the comments below.
Planet Romeo.
Okay.
Manhunt.
That's a true crime podcast, isn't it?
Slave Boys and Couch Surfing, which I believe Ed Sheeran was also on once upon a time.
Yeah, Couch Surfing isn't a dating or hookup site. It's literally you go into a different place. You need somewhere to stay. Am I able to stay on your couch?
A bit like SpareRoom.com.
Spare room's more for a longer stay, isn't it?
Stay.
Whereas Couch Surfing's more just, I've done a gig that night, just stay there for one night.
Yeah.
Really want to make that clear. Can't emphasise that enough. The Sleepy Boys killer is more kind of like, it sounds like more like a blues group than a actual. But the Grinder killer evokes a certain
mood, feeling, thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does indeed. Guys, don't forget to follow us on our socials. We've got Facebook now as well. Give us a follow on that. And please, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe.
Yeah, click that like button as well. We've never really pushed that, so
if this video gets 10 likes, next week I'll be slightly nicer to Ben. Slightly. And that's 10's too little. 50.
No.
50 likes. I'll be slightly nice. If you don't want me to be like nice, give dislikes.
No. If you want him to be nasty to me, over 100 likes, he'll be slightly more nasty to me.
Ooh, I like that.
But if it's in the threshold,
no, we'll round it up.
you're just going to be lukewarm to me. We'll round it up.
All right, okay.
Round you up in a minute.
Oh, what does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything that you've said it. Anyway, so shall we get into today's case, Ben, properly?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is Stephen Port, the grinder killer.
Yeah, and an interesting one. We've spent the first couple of weeks of the season, Oslo, Plainsfield.
And now we've gone to Barking.
Barking up the wrong tree there. Was he? Let's find out.
You're like a dog with a bone with those puns, aren't you? Barking. I carried it on. So yes, let's get into it. Stephen Port was born on the 22nd of February 1975 to the parents Joan and Albert Port, and he had a sister called Sharon Port. He was born in Southend-on-Sea and moved to Dagenham when he was 1.
No exceptional news to report in his early years. He was a very quiet child, as often is the case, but so quiet to the point that his schoolmates and school teachers thought he was deaf. And he was also a fairly small child. That would later change. Wonder if they called him Short Port.
Again, seems like you've got that natural bully instinct in your head.
No? No, just...
Short Port? I'd probably go with
do a boat joke.
Stephen Short.
Yeah.
Yes, as you said, he had a fairly unremarkable childhood, a bit of a loner, kept himself to himself, didn't speak a whole lot, and he left school at 16 to go to art college.
Yeah, so not a lot to report on Port, as well as being... Come on. So throughout his childhood and early adult years, his neighbours would describe him as having a peculiar childlike personality, exhibiting odd behaviour as a grown man, such as playing with children's toys. A former romantic partner of Port's also described his personality as childish and gave that as the reason that he decided to end their relationship.
Yeah, his sister would describe him as a grafter, which doesn't really fit in with the other explanations for him. I think, yeah, he was very into his children's toys as an adult. I think Transformers was one of his big, like, he was very intrigued by Transformers. But yeah, being bullied from a young age, I think remaining childlike, again, that's kind of happened with a few of these cases.
Yeah.
They seem as if they've not had such a happy childhood, maybe they hold on to certain things moving forward.
Yeah.
He had a passion for cars as well as music and films, which that's no red flags there. That's a fairly normal thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, were there any cars that could have given us a sign?
If it was a Transformer car, that was evil.
Yeah. Or Herbie just saying, get off!
So he went to art college at 16, but he dropped out after only a year because his father could not afford the fees. Stephen would later on say he had a very happy childhood, and in his life he was very happy, and he always he never wanted anything. He always got everything he needed, or he felt very kind of happy.
Fond
growing
memories.
up.
Fond memories.
Yeah, it has some things he has says. It seems to be he's got a bit of a fairy tale going on in his head about certain things. So, but yeah, he had to leave art college there. He came out as gay in the mid-2000s, subsequently being shunned by his father for being gay. He said, from his point of view, that he never actually came out to his parents. They always knew.
So shortly after coming out, Port makes the decision to leave his parents' home, and he only moves a short way down the road to an area of London called Barking, and he takes on a role as a chef at a stagecoach bus depot in West Ham. And interestingly, Port would subsequently go on to appear on a special episode of Celebrity MasterChef.
Yes, he's seen in the background. We'll show that here. Apparently, he was helping making meatballs with one of JLS.
There's a pun here somewhere.
I don't know enough JLS songs, so we'll leave.
And actually, if he's making meatballs, the grinder killer, the meat grinder, it all full circle.
Like a meatball. So he lived alone in his one-bedroom flat. One of the other people that lived in the flat next door, they remember him moving in. He also was gay, and he remembers making conversation with Stephen Port. But he recalls him being very kind of standoffish and quite not forthcoming with conversation. And he also said he had a very kind of childlike personality.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the kind of witnesses that would eventually come forward said that it was often hard to maintain eye contact with him because Port would immediately kind of look away. But also, most of his answers in any conversation were kind of one or two worded.
Yeah.
So very limited in that. Could have been shyness still, perhaps, but very quiet, kept himself to himself type of individual. He would also regularly, chefs tend to work split shifts, long hours, to go back to the graft that his sister said he had. So he was grafting away in the kitchens, but he would also find time to regularly go to the gym. And he was actually described as having a fairly athletic appearance, although some of the footage we've seen, he's very tall, certainly. So whoever came out with that short Port thing must be kicking themselves, but...
I think, there's some photos he posted on some of these dating sites where he's topless, and he looks fairly in good shape. To digress slightly, there's a biopic being made about him, a TV series for Stephen Merchant. That's going to be playing him. It's not been released yet. It's been delayed.
Great casting.
And you wouldn't describe Stephen Merchant as being athletic,
but great casting. I mean, there are some. They started shooting. Was it 2020? Before the pandemic.
It's been delayed because the pandemic has delayed a part of Port's case has been delayed, so they didn't want to put it out until that was all finished. So because that's been delayed by coronavirus, they delayed the releasing of the series.
It's called 4 Lives, and there have been some kind of stills emerge from the set, and Merchant is looking particularly haunting.
Yes, because
in that role.
The thing with Port, if you search him online, you do any Google images, there's very different looking images of him. Because he was balding from an early age, but he wore a blonde wig. And you see with Merchant, you see pictures of him with like a head of hair, and then he's got the ones of him without the hair. So he's really committed to the role there. I'm very excited to see that when that does eventually come out.
Absolutely. So, I mean, if you have seen it and you're watching this episode, many moons later, how was the episode? How did we do in prepping you for the episode? But you would have seen the episode already, and I've done myself. So let's continue.
So obviously Stephen's moved out from his parents' house. He moved out when he's 31 years old. So quite not quite old moving out. I don't know. Is that? Well, in today's economy, if you're trying to save to buy a house, that's probably quite young, actually, isn't it? Really.
Let's have a drink.
So yeah, he's moved out of that household, obviously knowing he was gay from a very young age. He wouldn't have been able to bring guys back to his parents' house because, as we said, his father was very, didn't approve whatsoever. So he's moved into this flat. He's finally got the freedom. He's, as I said, the other person who lived next door to him, who also was gay, said he saw a lot of people coming and going from the flat. Yeah. This is when he was starting to discover, kind of explore his sexuality, I guess.
Yep.
Creating a lot of different profiles, like we mentioned early on.
Yeah.
And he's really kind of getting involved in the gay scene.
So he's registered on multiple websites now, multiple dating apps, and starts to, have new men over the house almost on a daily basis. As part of this, we mentioned obviously the blonde wigs that he would wear in public, and a lot of the
I think it was just a wig.
A wig. He didn't have
I don't think it had an array of styles.
I think I saw
cornrows.
I think I saw spiky and quiff. I saw 2 different. Maybe it just got a bit of wind on it.
Maybe got a bit of wind on it.
Maybe. Who knows?
But this also, we said before about him being very childlike. He was also on these different profiles. He was kind of catfishing a bit by changing little details, saying he worked with special needs children.
That's it.
Claiming he also was a door-to-door salesman.
Yeah, there's multiple kind of new identities that he's kind of cooking up here. If
you're trying to impress someone, Ben, like, as I said, not done dating things.
No, ask the expert.
So, expert. It's like if you're going to lie about your job, like you want to glamorise it a bit. Door-to-door salesman isn't what you're going to go for.
No, I mean it's a different world to chefing.
Chef's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I'm not besmirching that. Love chefs.
No, I'm saying if you saw someone that was, I would have thought, that person's a chef. I would like to go around and can you make me a lovely lasagna?
Yeah.
I'm vegetarian, so please don't involve any animal.
To go back to the wigs point, the spiky, the quiffy, the mohawk, as well as the door-to-door salesman, Port would create multiple profiles on multiple sites and apps, including an account where he claimed to be of a military background and worked for the British Royal Navy. He had a separate account where he claimed to be a Californian porn star, and I've got the name. This might be a good porn star name. It might not be. John Luck.
John Luck.
John Luck, yeah.
Down on my luck.
Ooh.
Did you say he was a Navy he was claiming?
So these are separate accounts.
Yeah,
so he's got the door-to-door salesman. He's got the
special needs teacher.
Special needs teacher. He's got the Californian porn star.
Yeah.
He's got the Oxford grad as well. So maybe more of a sophisticated profile that he's put together. But he was using very, very old photos of himself, and police believe that he was doing this, and witnesses believe he was doing this to attract younger matches or younger partners.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely had a type, and his type was the younger male and slightly more slight. But yeah, it basically, again, like I said, perhaps it's because he didn't experience much sexual encounters as a younger man, but he had a very clear type, which was a lot younger.
So now what we're going to do is take a look at just how this Grindr user became the Grindr killer, and we're going to go through the timeline.
15th of June 2014, Port contacts Anthony Walgate through Sleepy Boy's male escort website and offers to pay him £800 for him to stay overnight on the 17th of June. Anthony immediately kind of felt slightly uneasy about this. There's something that didn't sit right with him. So he did message his friends beforehand saying where he was going and who he was going to meet.
£800, that seems, I don't know what the going rate is, but that seems high.
Don't even.
What?
So on the 19th of June 2014 at 4:18 a.m, a 999 call is made to police from an unknown man claiming that a young boy had collapsed outside of his home. Now we have the audio of this, so we'll play part of it for you now.
Cook Street, there's a young boy. Looks like he's collapsed outside. I don't know.
Outside of which number?
4758.
Sorry?
4758, I think.
47 Cook Street.
Yeah.
What area?
Barking. He looks like he's collapsed or had a seizure or something. He's always drunk. But, yeah.
What's the telephone number you're calling from?
I'm just pulling up in the car. I've got to get my car on the parking.
That's all right, don't worry about that. What's the telephone number you're calling from? Hello?
And you can hear in his voice, he's not panicking. You know, if I found someone collapsed outside of mine, I'd have at least a mild panic in the call. And he's very calm. It doesn't sound frantic in any way. He's not panicking at all. He's just stated that he's found someone collapsed. He went on to say that it felt like it looked like the boy had collapsed or had a seizure or something, or was just drunk.
Yeah, it's once you obviously with hindsight, and that the man making the call was Stephen Port, he was trying to be the good Samaritan there.
So Port kind of panics when they ask for additional information about the address, and tells them that he needs to end the call because he needs to get to his car to do the parking. And he ends the call. The call later returns. The 999 ambulance service got the caller on a second call to confirm the exact location. They asked the caller if he had seen anything at all, and he claimed that he hadn't. The boy on the ground was pronounced dead at the scene. This was the body of Anthony Walgate, who was obviously previously in contact with Port and propositioned for that £800 meeting. Walgate was a 23-year-old fashion and design student and occasional sex worker. So again, for him to make his friends aware that he'd already felt uncomfortable by Port's proposition, despite being an occasional sex worker, is...
Yeah, I think thinking about escorts as well, it doesn't always mean sex as well. It can be company and things like that. We don't know the obvious ins and outs for that in particular. But yeah, he was a very young guy, and he felt uneasy about it. And then, but with him, it was a good job that he did alert his friends where he was going, because his friends were able to go, oh, well, he did go and see this particular gentleman for this much at this address, and the police were able to go, okay, well, that's the guy that made the call.
Walgate's body is found propped in a sitting position near the communal entrance outside Stephen Port's flat in Barking, East London. Port tells police he found the victim like that and called 999 because he thought he might be drunk, collapsed, or suffering a seizure. The death was believed to be suspicious from the start, as Walgate also had bruising and cuts to his torso.
See, I mean, the idea of he found them like having a seizure, I mean, you'd imagine laying down on the floor would be a much more kind of normal position. It obviously looks like he's been propped up there himself. On the 26th of June 2014, Port is questioned after police discover he hired Walgate as an escort through the Sleepy Boys male escort website. They discovered this through his friends actually alerting them and saying where he was going. And the police were able to use this evidence to link Port because they were like, he's the one that made the call and he's the one that booked him. What's going on here? So they did go and question Port about this, and Port basically said, I was worried that you'd think I killed him, so I brought his body from inside my flat to outside, which just I mean, that's you would have thought that'd be a big red flag to the police. What's going on here? So Port eventually admits to hiring Walgate, but that Walgate had passed out from a self-inflicted GHB drugs overdose, a party drug that increased euphoria, relaxation, sociability, confidence, and sexual arousal. Port is charged with perverting the course of justice by making a false police statement and released on bail.
So that's crazy. So straight away, despite admitting that yes, he passed out in my flat, I just propped him up outside because I didn't want you to think I'd killed him. How is that not a bigger warning sign for the police, or how is that not questioned further? Yeah,
you wonder what, like, it would go on to his family will say he was very anti-drugs, and they thought this was very, very suspicious, and his friends did also, but the police seemed to just be like, oh, this is what happened. He said this is what happened.
And the cuts and bruises to the torso weren't explored further.
Yeah, I mean, throughout this case, there's going to be a lot of things that make you go, what were the police thinking or doing? Mm-hmm. And this was just, this is the beginning of the kind of, what is going on here?
So the 23rd of August 2014, Gabriel Kovari, a 22-year-old from Slovakia and also a previous boyfriend who had lived with Port in the past, rekindles the relationship with Port and goes to stay with him for a few days at his flat in Barking.
So the 28th of August 2014, 2 months after Walgate's death, Kovari's body is found semi-clothed, propped up in a sitting position against the graveyard wall at St Margaret's Church, Barking, which was 500 metres from Port's flat. Port had told his friends that Kovari had gone back to Slovakia in order to travel Europe, but he had also told friends that he died in Slovakia.
Yeah, there were a lot of, I think Kovari was very well known by other people within that kind of apartment building, but also Port's kind of, I don't know if he had a massive friendship group, but he was well known anyway, Kovari. But Port came up with a whole number of different excuses when questioned, especially by one of his neighbours who was close with Kovari. Said he'd gone back to Slovakia, he'd then gone travelling, or he'd met a partner who was in the military, so fled the country, and all these different excuses, but then started to tell them, actually, no, he died.
Yeah. I mean, the body was found by a woman walking a dog in the graveyard, and she will come up again later on.
Well, that's two guys in a 2-month period that have disappeared and then re-arrived in very similar circumstances.
Yeah, I think as well. It was, some people do believe possibly that the first death was accidental. It could have been a case of, he administered the drugs, but it's believed he did it via lubrication or via putting in a drink. He could have just got the dosage wrong. It could have just been a mistake. He might not have meant it, and that's why he panicked to put the body outside. But then when, it goes to the stage where he's done, it's the same death, it's the same overdose. Yeah. He's done that and then dumped the body in a graveyard and then come up with all these other explanations. You start to think, okay, maybe he's got a hunger for this now.
And of course, every human is completely different in their reactions and their personality and how they conduct themselves. But if that was the case and it was accidental, you would still think that he'd be a little bit more emotional on that 999 call, or have a little more energy. And I know, again, he might just be someone that can't, as we said, for his childhood, he was, people thought he was deaf at some point. So maybe he just couldn't communicate as we'll go on to the interrogation, he kind of communicates all at one level and one pace, one tone.
I guess the question is, as well, is he goes to stay at his flat on the 23rd of August, and then his body's found on the 28th. How long was the body in the flat for? And how quickly did he kill him and stuff like that? It's a lot to kind of question there.
So the 18th of September 2014, Daniel Whitworth, a 21-year-old chef, arranges to meet Port in Barking.
So the 20th of September 2014, Whitworth's body is also found in the same graveyard, sat up in the same position, also semi-clothed, which is immediately, again, very suspicious. Two dead bodies being found in that space in a short period of time. There's also, this time though, there is a suicide note, and it was written in a fairly bizarre way, which his family would go on to say, this doesn't sound like our boy. It didn't seem to be addressed to anyone in particular as well, which they thought was very bizarre.
There was part of it that even said, although it was addressed to his family, my family do not know where I am, or my family don't know I've run away.
Yeah, I mean, you imagine if it is addressed to the families, I'm so sorry, I'm going to miss you. It wouldn't be a case of talking about them in that third person.
Yeah, in that tense.
In that tense, yeah. So, and in the note also it said, by the way, spelled BTW, please do not blame the guy I was with last night. We only had sex, then I left. He knows nothing of what I have done. Again, if you're not, probably wouldn't be in the frame of mind where you're... It just seems to be very oddly written. I don't think it's going to surprise anyone to find out that Stephen Port actually wrote that himself. He wrote it with his left hand, and he left it there thinking...
Classic move.
He would completely, absolve him from any involvement.
If anything, that would do the opposite thing. Who is the guy from last night, and why is he referenced in this letter? So it's very kind of egotistical, but I think of all the cases we've covered, potentially, and I'll go on in some more detail later, but potentially this guy is the least intelligent of all of them.
That's it's quite a claim.
And we've covered Huntley.
Yeah. Hammerhead Huntley. So also with this note, Port was trying to link Kovari's death with it as well. The reason why Whitworth would go on to commit suicide was because he felt so guilty about the murder of Kovari, and he was trying to... Port's thinking was, if I can make this all about those two, distance myself from it, then I've got no kind of blood on my hands here. But the suspicious thing there was their bodies were both placed in exactly the same way, and despite the note, there were suspicious markings on the cuts and bruises on his body as well. When the note was sent to the family to confirm the handwriting, the family said it wasn't. They said there was nothing in the letter in the use of language, and that confirmed it was Whitworth. The police choose to disregard this and choose to confirm it as a suicide by drug overdose, though the coroner said that third-party involvement could not be ruled out. With this, you found 3 bodies in the space of around 5
months, is it?
Yeah, and in 500 metres of each other.
And all young, gay guys.
And
2 of them found by the same dog walker, Barbara Denham.
Yes, that's it. Barbara, she has a cracking voice, we'll play a little bit.
Yeah, we'll play her voice for you.
No, I don't believe this. I thought, please, God, don't let this be another body. I thought, I don't believe it. It can't be. Barking and Dagenham police, I don't really think they know what they're doing, quite honestly. They're nothing better than Keystone cops.
So yeah, she found the 2 bodies, which I might be slightly put off walking a certain space if I walk past the body. To go there again, but she found 2 bodies, and she said, like you said just then, she said
couldn't believe
that she found another one. The thing about this is as well that's horrible, which you can't help but think, and like one of the documentaries I watched, they said this as well. If this was young women being found,
the uproar
would be massive. But because it was young gay men, and they thought this is what they do, they go out and they take drugs and they overdose, the police seem to just not take it as seriously or be as suspicious as they should be, which is absurd. I mean, luckily the police would go on to look into this a bit more and try and eradicate this way of thinking.
Yeah, but it took a lot for them to kind of even start that. I mean, there were multiple LGBT plus groups kind of applying pressure on the police forces to take this investigation seriously, and that there may be potentially a serial killer on the loose targeting gay men.
I mean, it literally, like, and as well, in some of the documentaries, the wording they use was, this was a really serious case. He was he was the most dangerous person out there, and it was really intense and like hard case to do. It's like, it doesn't, looking from the outside of this, it doesn't look that complicated in the sense of, you've immediately got Port linked to the body outside the flat, then you've got 500 metres from his house, 2 other bodies in there, and it's like, because that's the other thing to note here, is they couldn't actually link Whitworth with Kovari at all. There was no link between them as people, and so they that's why they couldn't rule out the third party, because there wasn't a clear link between them.
Yeah. And it's crazy as well, because we recently covered the Twitter killer case on our Patreon page, the Shirashi case. And literally all they did to find out what was going on, young girls, and it took a lot of young girls to disappear for them to start taking it seriously, unfortunately. However, all they then needed to do was check into his accounts that he was using, follow the social media footprint there, and then they tracked him down. I hesitate to guess that all they would have to have done is look at one of Port's accounts, look at who he was chatting with, trace it back. You wouldn't even have to travel far, 500 meters.
Exactly.
And you've got your man. But,
definitely, With started investigating him and seizing some of his property, 100%. You think that they'd be quick to find that.
So the 23rd of March 2015, Port pleads guilty to perverting the course of justice in the case of Walgate's death and is sentenced to serve 8 months imprisonment. He was released with an electronic tag on the 4th of June, so he only served
just over 2 months.
Just over 2 months.
Because they've taken his word for it, the fact that he panicked and did that. And lied to the police.
The pressure that the police are now feeling to take this case seriously. It's multiple friends and families of the victims that are getting involved. You've got multiple LGBT plus communities. You've now got the Pink. Is it Pink News?
Yep.
So the Pink newspaper were also applying pressure to the police force to take this investigation seriously. And they're now finally feeling, they're now finally investing the time and the resources to look into this case properly. And Port at this point must feel kind of semi-invincible.
Well, yeah, he seemed to have got away with it, and obviously him going away in prison for those 2 months, not much, obviously nothing happened during that time as well. So the police probably thought, it was just a case of that, if it's completely slowed down. So there's a good BBC 3 documentary on this, and it follows Gabriel, Kovari's friend, John, and who was quite instrumental in actually believing this link in it and wanting to kind of prove that his friend had been murdered.
Yeah.
And he was trying to do a bit of online sleuthing himself and trying to dig into this himself.
Yeah.
And from that he stumbled across someone who claimed to have some knowledge on this, who said that Kovari was involved in his chemsex parties where young guys would go there, there'd be older men there who would drug on them and taking advantage of them. Yeah. He was trying to imply that Gabriel Kovari was kind of mixed up in the wrong kind of crowd, and this could easily have happened because he could have been in one of these parties and one of them just gave him a little bit of an extra dose. And the guy, luckily, his friend wouldn't buy that whatsoever.
Yeah. Whereas the police probably bought that more than he did.
Yeah, he did mention it to the police just to kind of say, can you look into this? He wanted to get it solved for his friend. He said, look into this. If there is older men doing this to young guys, can you please look into it? Yeah. But the police, they just said it was an accidental overdose. They weren't really listening to him.
And he was persistent as well. It is a great watch if you've got the time. And he's still he's clearly still hurt from this case and moved by it. It's
and again, like the letter, this would turn out to be Port talking to his friend, saying all this falsehood, and so just like the letter, it was Port trying to cover his tracks and try and muddy the waters.
Yeah, so he was talking on different, was it forums or?
It's a combination. I think that might be straight through Facebook.
So the 13th of September 2015, Jack Taylor, a 25-year-old forklift driver, communicates with Port on Grindr in the early hours and travels to Barking, arriving at his flat at 3 a.m.
So on the 14th of September 2015, Taylor's body is found in the same position as the others, by the same graveyard wall as the 2 previous victims. Again, this is presented as an overdose. However, Taylor's family are adamant that Taylor was neither suicidal nor into drugs. In fact, he was very anti-drugs. They also state that Jack was scared of the dark and would have not gone into the graveyard at night. Jack's family become a driving force in pushing the police into investigating the case properly, using Pink News, a leading LGBT plus news agency, to apply pressure after multiple gay men have been found dead in the same graveyard. Because to anyone with half a brain cell, and you look at it and go, why are these young men dying who are all gay, and why are all their bodies ending up here? There has to be a link. Obviously, Kovari was linked with Whitworth through that letter, but then they couldn't actually link them into actually have any kind of a connection whatsoever.
And you have to think about Port's kind of trail of thinking here. If even by chance the first one was an accident, 2, 3, and 4, setting them in exactly the same position. Is he going for the so obvious it's not going to be me kind of play here.
The thing is, though, like, yeah, the idea that he did it accidentally, the first one, as I said, that could have happened, but then he's found something in that he liked.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it must be a case of, I've done this and I haven't been caught. So why would you change
it again? Yeah, so I'll follow the same avatar of victim, exactly the same area, exactly the same drug, exactly the same location. Like I can't get myself into his thought process here. But
good,
like you say,
good. Okay.
well, yeah. So the 15th of October 23, and this kind of comes as a culmination of the efforts of Jack Taylor's family, so his sisters and his mother really a driving force here, but also the neighbour or the friend of Kovari.
Yeah.
So they're all putting huge pressure on the police to, take this seriously, to look into this. There is a serial killer on the loose, targeting gay men in Barking within that 500, 400 square metre parameter. Port is subsequently identified on CCTV walking with Taylor near Barking Station shortly before the latter's death. And this CCTV footage was available to them a year prior.
Yeah.
Which is just insane. Port is arrested. The police are heavily criticised for this as they never looked into the CCTV footage at the time. Which is just unbelievable. They now decide to interview Port as well as conduct a thorough search of his flat. In doing this, police seize Port's computer, finding a recent search history of boy drug raped, as well as multiple videos of Port filming himself having sex with unconscious males.
This has kind of a bit of a feeling of the Yorkshire Ripper, where it was like, they're sex workers, it doesn't matter. It's like, obviously with gay men, it's like they don't seem to be doing their usual in-depth looking. You would have thought it'd be a very basic thing to go, okay, where was he and where was he going on the night of his death? Yeah. Okay, let's look at CCTV footage. That'd be
let's interview the neighbours.
It's literally your first port of call there. Not a joke. It literally would be where you would go, and it's kind of like if you just did that.
Just simple police. What do they say when they finally... Simple coppering, as the guy that finally found the Ripper. But all they would need to do is go door to door. Look, have you seen any of these young men with any other men? Oh, yeah, actually, he's with that tall one that wears a wig. That tall, skinny Port.
So on the 23rd of November 2016, Port was convicted of the assaults by penetration, rapes and murders of Anthony Walgate, 23, Gabriel Kovari, 22, Daniel Whitworth, 21, and Jack Taylor, 25, as well as the rapes of 3 other men he drugged, and 10 counts of administering a substance with intent and 4 sexual assaults. He was found guilty on all counts. In total, 11 men were known as victims of Port's crimes. At the Old Bailey on the 25th of November 2016, Mr. Justice Openshaw sentenced Port to life imprisonment with a whole life order.
So we did an Insta post on the whole life tariff or the whole life order, and there are some names on there.
So Port, one of the kind of few with a whole life order, I think, it's around 100 or so people that are on that list. And as you said, there's some, very well-known names who have also made that list. So after Port's arrest, many more men would come forward with complaints of having been drugged and sexually abused by Port. 29 charges are put against Port, and police launched an internal inquiry into their own failings during the case. As well as this, police used new information on Port to look into 58 unexplained deaths involving GHB overdoses. So that's the reason why this has been delayed, because there's more. They're going to look into this case. Yeah. Obviously, he's not going to get any more time to serve, but hopefully there might be some more people's names getting justice.
58 deaths relating to GHB overdoses. And again, that neighbour stated he was meeting new people almost every day. So
yeah, and as well, the GHB thing it's not a common drug for people to overdose on. To be completely honest, I'd never heard of that drug until looking into this case. It's one of those where it's apparently not a common thing. So these were it was very bizarre that people were passing away via this. Jack Taylor's family are comforted by the fact that their son was murdered and did not take his own life. They were relieved that he wasn't in a dark place and held no hate towards any of their family.
Yeah, so imagine being in that position where you're relieved that it was murder and not suicide. That must have been...
Yeah, I guess you just got to take the comfort where you can in this kind of case.
So in terms of a motive for Stephen Port, all we really could fathom was that he was a sexual predator motivated by control and power.
I think with a lot of these cases, growing up, they're bullied, or they've never been really, they never felt in control, or what they can they can do. So then being able to overpower someone is something that really drives them.
So amongst a number of chilling details released from the court transcripts, the interrogation footage of Port was actually released to the public as well. There's some really interesting kind of body language in this particular interrogation, particularly if you're an innocent person being interrogated for these charges. I mean, I would naturally become quite nervous even if I had nothing to do with it. I think just it's natural to do that. But Port is not. His tone, as we said, his tone just stays the same the whole time. So first of all, it kind of lines up with a lot of his neighbours and friends. Port won't look at the interrogating detective. His head is always down reading a piece of paper which presumably have his rights on there. He is incredibly quiet and calm, doesn't come across too nervous. He's cold and calculated even when faced with incriminating accusations.
All found dead. Stephen?
Yeah, I understand, but...
Close to your house. One of them had been in your house.
They said it would be a coincidence if 2 people, ended up in that same situation, but what about 4? And again, Port just can't say anything. He's not fazed by it at all.
Yeah, the policeman and the detective, I think he does it really well.
Yeah.
He words it really well and plays it really well. You can see by his body language as well, his leg is tapping all the way through, which is a sign of adrenaline. Like your body releases adrenaline for you to either attack or to run away. And his leg is going, and because he can't release that energy, you can see that in his body movements as well.
Yeah. As you say, the interrogating officer, he kind of mirrors Port's kind of tonality and language as much as he can, and pacing. But Port, despite being kind of a 1 or 2 word answer guy, actually has an answer for every question, and it doesn't go with your typical kind of no comment. He doesn't have a lawyer present. One thing I found really interesting is he takes over 40 seconds to look at a photo of someone, which was one of the victims, to then say, I don't recognise him.
And he followed on, in this interrogation, he followed on the story about the chem parties, and he said that he was a runner for them. He'd bring young guys to the parties. And he also said that Daniel was one of those people who also did the running as well. He made up his whole, that's the thing, he makes up all these elaborate stories, trying to involve people, and like the chem parties, he was very obsessed with that idea. So he's trying to stick to his narrative there with that.
Yeah, really bizarre. And he even, during this 40-second pause when he's looking at a photo to then say, I don't recognise him, he does go, I'm trying to pay full attention to his face, or I'm trying to pay full attention to the guy's face. The one thing I really liked about the interrogator is he kind of repeats questions and makes it clear that he's not buying Stephen's answers. So they have kind of an exchange. Did you have any involvement in Jack's death? No. Did you kill Jack Taylor? No. Did you administer any drugs or harmful substances to him? No. With the intention of causing him harm? No. And you say you've never seen him before? No. Is that right? Yes, that's right.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those where...
Tries to trip him up.
It's also just trying to say, we know this information. It's kind of saying, we've got this, we know this part. We know all this information. Just, come clean because we've got you.
And one thing that kind of Port's answers to everything is essentially, I couldn't have killed these boys. They weren't my type.
But then he's also in the interrogations, he says, you said that before that this is your type and you're sexually attracted to these men.
Younger boys, yeah.
So, that's all available on YouTube, and, by all means, go give
It's
it.
uncomfortable watching. There's lots of intentional awkward silence.
So according to the Mirror, when Stephen Port was in jail, he developed a sexual relationship with Britain's worst paedophile in jail, claiming Port had a relationship with Richard Huckle, who were both serving time at HMP Belmarsh in the South East London. But you're not allowed to have relationships when you're in prison, so people can often be removed and relocated. And Huckle was relocated to a different prison and was subsequently murdered. Huckle's case is absolutely vile. And the thought of, those two people, such evil people kind of forming a relationship is just,
chilling.
So the IPCC, which is the Independent Police Complaints Commission, we're investigating whether 17 police officers in the Met should face disciplinary action over this case because they felt they weren't doing their utmost. They weren't being professional in terms of how they looked into this and maybe missed obvious leads. But after this investigation, no officers were given any disciplinary action.
Which just seems...
It just seems like they're just doing it to, like, you know, appease people, but not actually following through.
So in 2019, a gentleman called Gerald Matovu, who was known to have supplied Port with the GHB drug used in the killings, was arrested and sentenced to 31 years in prison for the murder of actor and businessman Eric Michaels. Using similar methods to Port, Matovu had targeted Michaels on Grindr and given him a fatal dose of GHB. So in 2020, in a Brazilian talk show program called Que Historia es essa Porchat, hosted by Fabio Porchat, an audience member named Rafael told his story of dating Port. Rafael had moved to London in 2012 at 19 years of age and had been working as a waiter when he met Port on a dating website. He went on to claim that after they started dating, he moved into Port's apartment for a little period of time, where they lived together for a little longer than a month. After they broke up, Rafael claimed that Port was physically aggressive, mentally aggressive, and a really difficult person to live with. So he would end up moving back to Brazil. One day after he'd moved back to Brazil, he decided to search Port's name online, presumably to find him on social media, and uncovered all of the news about what Port had done, and was interested since he thought Port had made a documentary on serial killers rather than actually the documentary being about Port himself. So he said, looking back, there was a lot of strange things going on. Another former partner of Port's also claimed to have broken up with Port due to his unusual and childlike behaviour. There was an interview with one of Port's previous neighbours, Ryan Edwards. He recognised that Port had some childlike tendencies and was about to, upon clearing his house up, was about to throw away a fire truck and decided to keep it and give it to Stephen as a gift. And apparently at the time, a lot of his friends questioned him, saying, you don't want to do that, that's offensive, you know, that's not funny. But while at a party, he gifted it to him as a light-hearted joke and said that Port absolutely loved the fire truck and immediately got on the floor, cross-legged, and started driving the fire truck up and down in his own little world. He said, which is actually quite good for our lookalike, he said Port was a little bit like Lurch out of the Addams Family.
So following Port's conviction, his mum and dad didn't have a great deal of things to say about the case, but his mum didn't believe that he had done it. He will have got involved and taken the blame for other people. He was like that at school. He didn't speak up. They thought he was deaf because he didn't speak up. His dad was trying to kind of echo that, saying, if I say something, don't do it. He'll just say, yes, Dad, and then he will go and do it. Kind of claiming that he would, you know, he wouldn't put up a fight and then he'll just carry on as if he's a bit of a easily led to do the wrong thing. So I think they think he got mixed up with the wrong kind of people. So we like to end these cases by doing, you know, a bit of slight light relief if we may. And we tend to do looky-likeys. Obviously, Stephen Merchant is playing him in a role, so there's a slight similarity there. I couldn't really think of any Port lookalikes apart from I thought he looks, when he's, there's a picture up now, which I think in particular he looks like he could play Lenny from Of Mice and Men.
Oh my goodness. Well, I thought in the interrogation he sounded a little bit like Lenny. Go to the party.
That's Jamaican, isn't it?
Go to the party. That's more Jamaican.
That's like
go to the party, been to the church.
Go to the chopper.
Go to the party, go to the church. That's basically what it sounds like in the interrogation. If we play them,
Lenny's American.
Yeah, I got Lenny vibes too, but just auditorily.
And the only other one I had was for the court drawings, which look nothing like him whatsoever. He looked a bit like Dermot Gallagher, the old referee.
You'll get a yellow card for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got... Wait a minute. Who plays Lenny? Is it the guy I've got?
John Malkovich.
I've got John Malkovich. So...
Yeah.
Not being horrible to John Malkovich, but in the... Yeah. There were a lot of comments as well on the various videos about this case on YouTube that Port looked like one of the mutants from the hit movie Wrong Turn. I don't know specifically which mutant. It's obviously not a kind reference.
No, I mean, yeah, he the mugshot kind of him. He does look
not kind.
Yeah, it does look scary there.
And that was the case of Stephen Port, the Grindr killer. And again, that's, you know, super specific. That's only a small element of what he did, but we're rolling with the Grindr killer as a title.
Yeah, Stephen Port, the multiple app killer, would be a bit
multi-app slayer.
Slayer.
But there you go. Thank you so much, as always, guys, for checking us out. We really appreciate it. For those listening, the special socials you can hit us up on are all on the handle @CouldMurderAPod. So go check us out.
And don't forget to, if you haven't already, to subscribe to our YouTube and give us a like and a comment. And also, if you're listening to us on Spotify, give us a follow on there as well. It's very much appreciated. Why not give us a review?
Why not tell your friends? That's the most lovely thing you could do for us right now. Tell your friends, stick us in their ears.
And if you want to support us in another way, we've got a Patreon page with a lot of unseen minisodes on there and some Q&As with us. Any support on there is much appreciated. It all goes towards this project. We also have a new merch store, so why not pick up a bit of fresh merchandise? And if you tag us on that on Instagram, we always retag and repost you. So, any support there will be much, much appreciated.
And as always, and we say this almost too much now, just, keep doing
what you're doing.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Unless
it's grinding.
Well, you can do that, but just don't kill people.
Non-specific.
Just don't kill people.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See you next week.